Morning, my friends. Okay, here we are the next day after finishing field dressing, skinning, and quartering Jody's deer. This is the last video. This is primal cuts. One thing I forgot to mention to you guys, the meat's all cooled down, so I'm in no rush. It's down to about 55 degrees this morning, so we're not dealing with that 80-degree temperature, so I can take a little more time with you. It's frustrating when you gotta go like a bat out of you nowhere to get the animal processed for fear of losing any meat. But as you've seen in the previous videos, it takes literally minutes. Okay, one thing I failed to mention is the kind of knives I use. These are Forstner knives, and I use two different kinds of steels. I use the serrated steel, and I use a smooth steel. So you'll see me using them every so often. The smooth steel basically refines your edge, so it gets it really nice and tight, nice and sharp, being razor sharp. The Forstner knives, you can get them at Koch Supply, that's Koch, or you can get them at Walton's. These are all butcher supply stores. They're not that expensive, and I'm telling you what, these knives are worth their weight in gold. They're phenomenal knives. I've been using these for pretty much all my butchering career since back in the 80s. Dexter Russell makes a good knife too. The only problem with Dexter Russell is they have a high carbon steel in their knives, and you've got to keep them oiled or they will rust. These Forstner knives, Victorinox is what they're called, Victorinox, Forstner, same thing. These won't rust. And they hold an edge like you wouldn't believe. So let's get started on this. We're gonna do the front quarters first. Okay, so you got your front quarter. You got a fat cap right on this knuckle here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut that off, and you'll see how this is even. You know, it's clean. So that's actually a seam in the muscle. You're going to hear me say that a lot. The seam's in the muscle. Okay, we're going to just throw that off the side because there's some usable meat on that fat cap. Okay, and we're going to remove all of this bloodshot material. You don't want that in your burger. You don't want that in your roast. But you know, you can literally skin that bloodshot off. You don't, without wasting a lot of meat. And like I said, having a good sharp knife is key for that. So, anyways, I need to grab a pail to put my scrap in. I'll be right back. Done that before. All right, now set the front quarter up like this. There's a joint right down here. I don't know if you can see it or not. If you're going to use this for a roast, this is how I would suggest doing it. Go into the first knuckle just above the shank. Find the bone. Guide your knife along that bone. Okay, and then kind of wiggle your knife when you find that joint, and you're going to cut it right off. Okay. See, so here's your shank. I see that Steve Ranella on Meat Eater, he is a big proponent of using the shank for stews and stuff like that. So you know, if you want to save the shank for that, there's so many different cuts, different varieties of processing. It's not funny. So, but anyways, so we're just going to throw the shank off to the side for a second. Now, on your front shoulder, here's the inside of your blade. And you can see where that bone is. That's where that knuckle was that we just cut through. Come down along the inside and just hold your knife tight against that shoulder blade. And there's your roast. Now you can trim this up just a little bit more. It's totally up to you. Get this bloodshot stuff off there. You don't want that crap in your final product. It's pretty simple to get that crap off of there. Okay, so now we want to trim off the fat. The one thing on venison, that if you don't want that wild taste, get the fat off. Venison fat is not like hog fat or beef fat. You want that off there. Very little silver skin on this roast. Okay, we don't do roasts, so this is what we do. We do roast off the hind quarter, but front shoulder roast, this is For sausage, we make a lot of breakfast sausage, several different varieties of breakfast sausage. Jody and I make, and we also make a lot of brats. And we go through a ton of venison burger. We don't buy meat from the store very often. I mean, like once a year maybe. We live on venison. We live on wild game, squirrels, rabbits, and the animals that I trap on my trap line: beaver, raccoon. So we even had bobcat last year. That was actually pretty good. So, anyways, there's a roast if you want to make it as such. Go to the inside of. To clean this, a lot of guys are intimidated by this, the shoulder blade. I'm just trimming off some meat here is all I'm doing. They're intimidated by the shoulder blade because they don't know how to get the meat off it. So start on the inside and just hold your knife. You're holding your knife like this and you're pushing it flat and just using the tip. You're only basically using the first 1.5 to 2 inches of your knife. Okay, you're not sawing through it. Just using a slicing motion. And hold your knife flat against that bone, okay? And then cut it off, and that's clean. Very little fat on it. Score both sides along the bone. So you start at the knuckle where you cut the shank off. Just score it lightly. This side's already scored, of course. Then you're going to feel that where the bone comes up like this on the outside. Go along both sides of that. Keep your knife nice and tight. You can pull that right away from the bone. You see how clean that bone is? You can do this on the same side, same on the other side. Peel it all the way down. Keeping your knife tight on that bone. And there's your shoulder blade. Done. Okay, and then I'll go back through and do all this trim and stuff later. I'm not going to bore you with that. Okay, now on your shank, pretty simple. Just cut just above where the tendon starts. Super simple. There is no need to go crazy cutting the silver skin off. Okay, the only part you really need to worry about cutting the silver skin off is on the loins, on the back straps, and we'll get to that in a minute here. Get as close to the bone as you can. Try not to waste anything. You took this animal's life. Be respectful and use as much meat as possible. So basically, it's just like you're whittling a piece of wood. There's nothing to it, okay? So basically, there, your shank is done in the front quarter, okay? I'm gonna go back through. I'm not gonna bore you with another front quarter. I'm gonna pull a hind quarter out of the refrigerator here. Okay, here we got the hind quarter. This is easier than the front quarter, okay? So trim all the fat off, and again, you've got a knuckle of fat on the hind quarter, just like what you do on the front quarter. Trim all that off, pretty simple. Don't go crazy trimming it, yet, because once you get the meat off the bone, it's easier to trim. Okay, now on your hind quarter, you got a tendon right here. So come up through here at the top of the tendon, and you're going to lose just a little bit of meat there, but you don't want to have to run any of this tendon through your grinder. It's going to gum it up. It's going to be a pain in the butt. Now there's a joint, just like on the legs when I cut the legs off, when I showed you that the video on the skinning. There's a joint right in between here. Okay, so basically you're going to stick your knife in between that joint like that. Come around and right along here. This is part of the shank. You're going to find your seam. Pretty simple. Use a little leverage, bear down on it, and as you're cutting, there's your shank. Okay? Or, like I said, if you want to do a Steve Rennell on the meat eater, if you want to use some of that for braising or whatever. But we use it for burger. Okay. Now, working on the inside of the hind quarter. You got a knuckle up here. You got a joint down here. So you know there's bone dead center on here. So just take your knife, imagine where that bone goes. It's a straight shot. There's your bone right down in there. So now you're going to take the tip of your knife and just lightly score along that bone, going around the joint where you cut off the shank. Okay? Now through the top, you're going to come back around through here. Just the tip of your knife, okay? Going around that knuckle. Keeping the tip of your knife, just this much of your knife is what you're holding that knife up against the bone and basically shaving it, okay? Okay? Get your any residual meat off. There's not going to be a lot on there. I mean, this is so thin, it's paper thin. But again, we want to save as much meat as possible, okay? Got a little bit left down here. Be careful down here because you don't want to get into the tendon. You'll know if there's, if there's a lot of meat, a big chunk, then that's what you want to shave off. Otherwise, that's all we got off that bone after cutting it off, and it's clean. So now, the parts of the hind quarter. You'll notice at the top you're going to have this part here. This is your sirloin, okay? So make a line across the top of the rump and your sirloin tip. Cut that off. And this is going to have a big chunk of fat on the outside here too, which is going to be easy to separate that. I'll do that quick. Get that fat off there. There's a little valley of fat here. Get that off there. And then just take the tip of your knife again, hold it up against the fat, and trim that off. Super easy. I don't know why more people don't do their own processing. I know, because they haven't been taught. So that's your chunk of fat. There's nothing left on there. This is basically for burger. You can cut this into steaks if you want. I mean, it's like I said, this is the actual sirloin. Okay. Any residual fat, get that off of there if you're going to use it for steaks. There's a little bit of fat on the inside there. No big deal. Okay. Now separating your parts of your round. Sirloin tip, and that is the front of the back leg. Then you got your rump. And there are 3 parts to this. You got your bottom round, your top round, and your eye round, okay? Typically on a steer, this would be your toughest, driest parts of a steer. However, on a deer, that's where most people make their steaks, okay? So, at the bottom, you just make a slit down through here, and you'll find where the sirloin tip, there's a membrane here. You see that membrane here? And then you just pull that apart. You're pulling the cap off it. You're pulling any disgusting stuff that was left over from skinning. You're pulling that off it. You might have to use your knife just a little bit just to help it along, but for the most part, it just pulled away. Okay, this is your sirloin tip. This you can use for steaks. Makes a great roast. If you're gonna make steaks, you're cutting it like this. Okay? Cutting, so basically against the grain. This would be with the grain. You don't want to do that. You're cutting against the grain. So that, cut them off at a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch, whatever. The steaks we make, we cut ours off usually pretty thick, about 1 inch, because we cook our venison medium rare. So many people overcook their venison. It's dry, it's gamey, it's nasty. You cook this medium rare, you'll thank me later. Anyway, so there's your sirloin tip. Okay, throw that off to the side for now. Now, this is connecting to your bottom round, so we'll just cut that off right at that fat line. And this is just basically scrap. We'll trim that up later. Now, on the inside here between the bottom round, top round, and eye round, and there's also a piece of the shank inside here too. And you'll see where those muscles come together to separate that. See, everything is the way God made these animals. He made them easy to take apart. Then just cut along that fat line there. Okay, this is your top round. You're going to have a little vein here. Cut that off. A little residual. Okay, there's a gland in there. Remove all glands at all costs. You don't want those glands in there. It gets, especially on a buck, it's going to be strong taste. Remove your fat. You know, just take your knife and you're basically shaving that fat off. Okay, pretty simple. Okay, now you got your top round. You can square this off, and then you can start making your steaks. If you want to get, you know, super technical on it, you know, you can go back through and remove this little bitty cap that's on there too. But you got a 100% usable piece of meat right here. Roast, steaks. This is also where you're going to get your jerky too. Is your hind quarters. This is very lean, and so if you want to make your jerky, and again, you're cutting it against the grain. Okay, you don't want to cut it the long way. You'll see where your grain, where your meat, the composition, how it runs like this. It's easy to tell if you're cutting against the grain or with the grain. Okay, so there's your top round. Now, if you look on the inside here, everything's laid out for you. The way God designed these animals, like I said, they come apart real easy. You see on this front part of the shank here, how it connects with the eye of the round. This is your eye around this small piece right here. It'll look like a piece of tenderloin. Basically, just come around and stay in your seam. You're not cutting into the meat. All you're doing is basically seaming it. Okay? Get off your residual crap. Excuse me, I can't talk. Now, on your flat or your bottom round and your eye round, there is a chunk of fat in here. In this chunk of fat is a gland. At all costs, remove that, okay? So basically, you're gonna just slide your knife in between the eye of the round, opening that up, and there's a vein that runs across through there. Slice that out. You're not cutting into the meat. It's all attached by membrane. Okay? There's a gland in that piece of fat. Get that out of there, okay? Go back through, clean up your fat. This is a piece of tendon that you don't want to run through your grinder too. This is a tougher piece. Just, you know, slide your knife across there. Now clean that meat off of that silver skin as well. To clean the meat off the silver skin, you're just basically filleting it like a fish. Okay, so there's a little bit of fat on top of here. Again, you're just shaving it off. That's how much meat was on that when I shaved it off, okay? And like I said, can't stress this enough, a sharp knife is key. So basically, this little bit of membrane here is not going to hurt anything. Once you cook it, you're never going to even know it's there. You got a 100% usable piece of meat. If you want to separate the eye of the round from the bottom, it's pretty easy. Again, just follow that seam. So there, you got your bottom round, and you got your eye of the round. Pretty simple, guys. We don't use this piece of meat very often. Once in a while, I'll make some steaks out of it, or roast. But if we're going to have a roast, we're going to use the sirloin tip. So this is done. It's ready. Okay. Last but not least, we're going to pull out the loins. Super simple. Okay. Here is the loin. Now, when we pulled this off of the deer last night, we didn't trim this back part off. So to trim this back part off, just grab a hold of it and pull. Okay, so this is the outside of the deer. Okay, you got a piece of fat. You got some usable meat down here. You're also going to have some tendon from the back. We'll trim that up later. Okay, this is the part of the silver skin you definitely want to remove off your back strap. I got a way of doing this that, I'm just trimming off the side here, that really works well because we like to cook our chops whole. Reason is that you can control the temperature on your grill or whatever a lot easier. And for Jody and I, we'll take like a half of a loin out at a time. So you're basically going to cut down in the center of the loin. Make sure my knife's good and sharp for this because I don't want to leave any meat on the silver skin. Center of the loin, right about here. Go down, not all the way, gently, okay? Now, as you get close to the silver skin, turn your knife, just like filleting a fish, and just run your knife along that silver skin. Get any residual, this little bit here is trivial, but I'm still gonna get it off for showing you guys purposes. Me, I just eat it. Because that's the thickest silver skin is this part right here. Okay, so you got one loin. Trim off that crap there. There's a little piece of tendon here. We'll get that. Square it up. And you got one loin. Okay? Excuse me, half a loin. So, as you can see, that's clean. It's beautiful. Now we'll do the other half. So you're holding the silver skin. Now you're going to do the same thing. Just hold your knife at a slight angle. You're not sawing, you're just gently pushing it through. There's your silver skin. There's a usable piece, I mean 100% usable piece of loin, okay? So that's basically it. Everything else is just trimming to your specification, trimming, you know, like the rib meat, you know, trimming all that off. Make sure you get all the bloodshot crap off. Very, very important. You don't want that in your burger. You don't want that. But like I said, I believe people put too much emphasis on silver skin, not enough emphasis on fat. You'll know if silver skin is too thick to go through the grinder. And the silver skin, once you cook it, if it's the thin stuff in the hindquarters, if it's the thin stuff in the roast on the front shoulder, it doesn't matter. Just don't waste your time, okay? The most important silver skin, like I said, to take off is on the back straps, on the loin, okay? The tenderloins I got in the cooler too, but it's not really that important. If you can't figure out how to do that, then yeah, you need more than just this video. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm gonna get this finished up, like I said, and I guess I can show you how to do the shank on the back quarter too. It's the same thing as the front quarter. Cut just above the tendon. Slide your knife. The tip of your knife goes to the inside here because you don't want to waste any meat that's down in this crevasse there. Basically, you're just whittling the meat off. When you get down to the knuckle, just kind of work your knife around the joints. Work your knife around the tendons. If you use common sense doing this, it's not rocket science. It's so simple, you guys. You'll never take a deer to the butcher again. This little piece of meat here is so paper thin, it's not funny. But again, my rule is, if you're going to kill the animal, use every part of it. That's it. And again, on your shanks, you know, if you want to take the time to take all that silver skin off, this will run through the grinder just fine. Any grinder, hand grinder, you know, if you got a grinder, electric grinder you got from Cabela's or whatever, it'll run through there just fine. That silver skin isn't as tough as you think it is. So, anyways, that comes to the conclusion of our deer processing videos. There's this one, there's the breaking down the carcass, there's the skinning, there's the field dressing. Like I said, there's 100 different ways to process a deer. This is how I've been doing it my whole life. I'm almost 60 years old. I have done literally tens of thousands of deer. To give you an idea, one meat market I worked at, we did 1,500 deer a year. You know, Plus, I butchered out of my garage as a sideline, so I'd butcher 300-400 deer by myself on top of that 1,500 deer that we butchered at the meat market. So, hope all this helps you guys out. No negative comments, please. And like I said, there's a lot of different ways to do this, so keep your opinions to yourself. You're not going to change my mind on how I do this. And if you found a different way to do that, I'm happy for you. Use it then, okay? So that's it.